Hi, Shelly Slater here with Ona Foster from Family Compass. We are here because we need to have a conversation about what is happening in people's homes.
Yeah.
Child abuse on the rise, stressful, tricky, hard, uncertain times. And this is sincerely affecting a lot of people.
I'm going to jump right in.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, on Friday, one of my staff called me. We're immediately trying to set up places where parents can talk to us, which is going to be virtual or via phone. We can't do anything in person. And just to try to schedule those meetings, we're immediately in crisis response with these families. As we outreach into the homes to set up scheduling, we had a young mom, and she's immediately sobbing on the phone with one of my staff members because the level of stress in their household, their multi-generational household, is so high. The routines are out the window. She doesn't know what to do with the children, and the stress is just through the roof. And we know that that's when child abuse and neglect can skyrocket. And so
Even in families that are, quote, doing okay in the world, I think that the stress is that you're wondering, okay, will we keep our job? How do I homeschool a child? Is my mom going to be okay?
Yeah.
All of these things. And so the stress level, would you say it's doubled?
It's just
Quadrupled?
astronomical. It's completely off the charts for these families, and it's terrifying.
So where do you go from here in a virtual world to help?
That's a great question. And for us, we're usually so hands-on with families. We're one-on-one. We're in their homes. We're in a classroom. We can't do any of that. And so transitioning to a virtual world, which we're all doing, that takes a little skill and effort. And so that's immediately what we've transitioned to. But there's hope. There are things that you can do in the virtual world to help people lower stress. And quite frankly, it's stuff that we should be doing anyway.
Right. It's interesting how hard everything is right now, but it's also like stripping us back to the very basics we should have been doing at the beginning.
Absolutely.
It's interesting. So tell me about some of the things we can be doing now.
The first thing is to connect, be present, talk to each other. And it's not asking the question of, are you feeling stress? We're all feeling stress. It's, where is your stress coming from? What's going on with you? And really actively listening to what people are telling you, like really connecting in and letting someone know that you care and you see them and that you are hearing what's going on. That's what's going on in these families. They don't have anyone to talk to.
And you used to be the one they talked to,
Absolutely.
face to face, privately.
Absolutely.
And what are you doing about the ability, I'm sure this ranges socioeconomic levels. Child abuse is across all of them. But what do you do in a virtual world when I don't have an iPad and I don't have a computer? What are you doing there?
It's interesting you ask, because what it means for us is every single family is different. And so some of our families don't even have internet. So that's going to be a phone call, but it's a phone call we're going to make. And if they have the ability to have an iPad or FaceTime on a phone, then that's what we'll use. And so every single family, we're going through and we're contacting them to determine what level of technology they have, what type of schedule they want, and then we're setting that up going forward. But it's difficult sometimes to even get through those scheduling phone calls because people are immediately in crisis. We're doing crisis response right now with the families we work with.
So do you need more people? Do you need more money? What's going to help you right now? Because it was interesting, like Governor Abbott even saying yesterday, he's like, okay, look, even if you're in nursing school, you're good at it's good, go. Because they're in we're all in crisis mode.
Everyone.
So do you have to be a trained professional volunteer to be helping you right now? It's difficult.
It's an excellent question. And so that's the other piece for us is, yes, we can have volunteers help us and do those basic connections. The key for us is we've built a relationship with these families and they trust us. And so when it comes to child abuse and neglect, no one has eyes on these children in the home. And that's the concerning part, is how do you know if child abuse and neglect are happening? And stress is always a contributing factor. It's one of the biggest of the three factors that contribute to child abuse and neglect. And if you are someone who is a professional or a paraprofessional and you are having virtual or phone contact with families, then it's important to, ask, How are things going in the home? Talk to the child if you can, and look for some of those signs, and then really helping parents take care of themselves. I think it's that self-care piece that's completely going out the window, and if parents are not taking care of themselves, the children are going to pick up on that.
Yes, because the kids can tell things are not safe right now.
Yes.
Am I going to have a meal? Am I going to have a house? Am I going to have, yeah. So
Yeah.
this may be a silly question, but what happens when you are like, okay, I just got off the phone with Janie. All the signs are there. We have to do something. Is CPS even allowed to go in right now? What are we allowed to do that?
Well, and we should be doing it. So yes and
Okay.
yes. And
Okay,
so
yes
we
and yes.
absolutely should be calling.
So that's not shut down.
No, call 1-800-252-5400 is the hotline. You can make reports online. 911 if you believe it's an emergency situation that needs immediate response. And so absolutely, and every adult in Texas is a mandated reporter.
Okay.
And some people don't know that. But when you're really connecting with families, if you think that that's an issue, you've got to make the call. But more importantly, I think that it's really coming in and helping parents deal with their own stress and take care of themselves. Because the one thing that children need, well, multiple things, but the first thing children really need is that reassurance, that consistency, and knowing that that primary caretaker is focused on them. And I think that parents are pulled in a million different directions right now because of all the stressors that are happening. And so then children start to try to get attention. And so then we write it off as acting out. It's not acting out. It's not, I'm here, I'm scared too. And so helping parents be able to kind of level set themselves, and then they can connect to their children. And it just lowers the stress in that home. And then that lowers child abuse and neglect. There's a direct correlation.
I mean, even you telling me this right now, where we are kissing and loving on our children every night, Hutchison, and the amount of times he's asking me, I don't understand what's happening, and he's a third grade, I don't understand what's happening. But he keeps, I'm like, I'm on the phone.
Exactly.
But he's just trying to reach me for me to sit down.
Because they're anxious too. And they feel our anxiety, and they're out of their norm. And this is kind of basic trauma response stuff. This is an abnormal time, and so it's normal to have stress.
So compared to any other time, we've been through 9/11, all the things that you've seen in all of your years, how does this compare?
I've never seen anything like this.
Crazy, I know.
No, the level of stress just generally throughout the entire population is so escalated right now. And then when you layer in these factors of poverty, and maybe the parent is young in these families, domestic violence may be happening, substance abuse, all of these things are going to escalate in the home. And children are the forgotten population. They can't pick up the phone and dial 911 when things are going on. And so that's the worry. It's this hidden epidemic of child abuse and neglect that's going to be this undercurrent that's going to come out later unless we can do prevention now. And that's where Family Compass comes in, that prevention
so then
piece.
Give me, just a regular human being, 3 tangible things that I, Shelly Slater, can do today, even though I cannot go into the home of Janie, who's living in a multi-generational stressful house.
Yeah.
What do I do now?
Connect with Janie and ask her how she's doing. Ask her what her stressors are, and listen and really hear her. And then the next step is help her problem solve. What are those stressors? If it's routines are out of order, well, then where do you start? Start by setting some new routines in this new abnormal normal, and set those routines, and then make sure that you are doing self-care. And it sometimes sounds kind of silly, but even just breathing. And there's a process, there's different ways of breathing, and a lot of people meditate. Go back to your basics. But you can do a four count in breath, hold for 4.
Oh, hold it. Okay.
And then 4 out, and hold for 4 more, and then repeat.
It just makes you stop yourself.
It makes you
entirely.
stop yourself, and then you can refocus. And for parents who, when stress is escalating, there may be anger going on in the home. If a parent is feeling like that, don't touch your child. Make sure your child is safe, particularly an infant, that they're in a safe sleep environment, that they're somewhere where they can't roll off, that they're not somewhere laying where there are other objects around that they could roll into and smother themselves. Make sure they're safe and step away. And step away, step out of the room. If there's another adult that can be with the child, great, but if not, it's okay. Step away, do your breathing, ground yourself, your feet are on the floor, focus on that, get yourself centered, and then you can come back and be what you need to be for that child, which is a touchstone in that rock.
Okay, stress is number one. What is number two?
Number two are the living conditions in their home and environment. And so,
Which that's going to be a hot mess too in every house, because you're not used to having your children in your house all day long.
absolutely.
Nor you or your husband working in your house all day
Absolutely.
long.
And if someone's lost a job already, which
Right.
many families have, and so it's really attending to that. And there's this whole piece around making sure that all of the nonprofits in our community are struggling as well. And like we're having to cancel our spring luncheon, but every nonprofit has a spring event.
Right.
Every nonprofit is dependent on corporate dollars, which are now frozen for donations. Every nonprofit is dependent on individual giving, and with the fear about the market, individual donors are pulling back. And so for all of us to keep our doors open, we're dependent on people continuing to give so that we can keep our doors open, so that we can keep touching into these families and doing this prevention work, which is going to help us on the back end as we try to pull through this crisis together.
So right now already, do you feel like the number of calls and problems you're seeing, has that already doubled? Is it tripled? Is it just a little uptick? Like,
I couldn't even put a number on it, but it's enormous.
already?
We're feeling the strain already. Like we just even trying to get schedules set to continue to meet with people, even scheduling turns into a crisis response call. We're immediately
Because even that is stressful to me, that I've got to take this call with you, but I just lost you don't understand.
Yes, that's exactly what. And so it turns into, how can I help? How can I listen? And they're immediately in the middle of, okay, so let's reset your routines. Let's really talk about what's going on with you.
Okay, so stress, keeping some kind of togetherness in your house where it's not just a disaster, so
Yes,
it feels
yes.
under control. And what is the third?
Yes. So the third piece around the work that we're doing with families is really helping them with parenting best practices. And so that's kind of part of this. And so when we can connect with them virtually or through phone, we're also helping them with activities, which kind of feeds into the routines. It's like, how do you kind of set a routine in the evening that's going to work now? And you may have other families in the home, and so that's the other piece, because what they learned growing up maybe isn't the best parenting practice. And so for us, it's making sure we're still getting that
Modeling.
information out to them. Yeah, modeling, mentoring, coaching, guiding them, and then hooking them up to support. You know, where can I go to get food to put on the table? It's all those wraparound pieces. Everything we do is about the prevention of child abuse and neglect, which is getting in there and supporting that family in any way we possibly can.
Okay, so you've been open about this. I've been at one of your luncheons, and I thought your speech was one of the, I literally never say this, your speech was one of the greatest things that I've ever heard. It was incredible.
Thank you.
So you've been through this yourself. So is this harder for you right now because you know exactly how much this is going to hurt? Like, are you okay?
I'm okay. Thank you for asking. And this is a great way to model this with other people. But yeah, so with my past of being adopted myself and knowing the struggle that my mom, who was 14 when she got pregnant with me, that mirrors a lot of the families we're working with. And so for me, I feel the weight of that personally, and I feel the weight of it as the leader of a small organization that is doing frontline work to help families stay out of the system. And so that pressure to make sure that I can keep all of my people going and connecting to these families that need us, that's the weight for me.
Yeah. And keeping people out of the system. So either you get the dollars that you need to prevent this, to keep kids healthy and happy and out of the system,
Right.
or they pay for it in the long run, and so do all of us.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, we can't avoid it. We can't avoid it.
And it's all interconnected. And if we can't get on the front lines and stop child abuse and neglect now, it's going to catch up to us on the back end. And the systems that are in place for intervention aren't going to be able to deal with the influx. They're already straining as it is. And so my job is to keep as many cases as possible with my team out of that system so that it doesn't get that overwhelmed. So that's a huge fear of mine, is what's going to happen as we get down the road.
Yeah.
And those systems that are in place. And it's
Can't
CPS,
handle it.
it's the justice system, it's the courts, it's everything. And
it's families torn apart because of it.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, so the luncheon is canceled. Why don't you turn straight into this camera and tell people how they can be part of the solution right now, today, this very second?
Yeah, absolutely. So the cancellation of our luncheon, we were counting on $130,000 for the luncheon alone. And if you can continue to support, if you pledged and can go ahead and follow through on that pledge, if you can just help us with a donation, and with anything, any amount will help us keep our doors open and keep us serving the families that are really in crisis.
Yeah, I think that right now, let's end it this way, because I do feel like we're hearing so much hard stuff right now, but your story of hope.
It's hope.
And this is about hope. I mean, you're here at the Slate, and we want you to be here because we care about our community, and so do you.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of other people who I think would love to help. So can you give me one story of real hope that this works as we leave?
Absolutely. I hear these stories all the time. My staff tell me all the time about these stories. And we recently had one, 15-year-old mom drops out of school, and we start working with her. She thinks that she can never succeed. She's been told that she's ruined her life. And we come in and we tell her, there's a whole other narrative here for you. You haven't ruined your life. And you can have a career. You can graduate from high school. And you can do something for your child that's meaningful and creates a future for that child. And then that child learns how to parent differently. And then their children learn how to parent differently. And so it's this intergenerational trajectory that we change for families every day. And it makes such a difference. That this prevention aspect, it's pretty magical. It absolutely, it's the nonprofit business of hope. That's what we do.
Okay. And you can change the narrative. You can help write the narrative. Website and that 1-800 number again.
Yes. And so our website is family-compass.org.
Okay.
And the 1-800 number, if you do suspect child abuse and neglect, 1-800-252-5400. It's the Department of Family and Regulatory Services. So go out, and if you need to do something online, it's, I think, textabusehotline.org. And just make sure if you see something, say something. But the main thing is start saying something to each other.
Check in,
support. And
check in.
if we can do that, then maybe we can prevent having to make that call in the first place.
Ona, thank you for doing all this in our community.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.